Climate change is here, and even though we've caused it, we're not really doing a whole lot about it. COVID came around. It was a tough time, but one thing that was positive about it is that actually we've seen that changing our habits does have a positive impact on our global CO2 emission. That left me hopeful, but 3 years later, here we are. Turns out that permanently changing our habits is actually quite a challenge. Because after all, do we really want to say no to hopping on a plane and having a nice holiday? I'm certainly guilty. But reducing weight by 1 kilogram results in a typical aircraft emitting 25 tons less CO2 throughout its life cycle. Sounds good, but if I'm completely honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what 25 tons of CO2 looks like. So I did what I guess most people would do and just Googled it. So it turns out that if I would drive in a car emitting 1 ton of CO2, I would get a little over 4,000 kilometers far. So starting in Utrecht, we would get somewhere into the middle of Russia. If I was using an electric car, I would get almost 4 times as far, so roughly to Australia. Now, this is only 1 ton of CO2, not 25. And I'm only talking about one airplane, not the 23,000 that are currently in active service. And I'm not even talking about any of the other modes of transport. So this is a long-winded way of saying reducing the weight of various methods of transport is actually a really good thing. And we already know how to do this. Composite material are the way forward. They're a very well-known material in order to replace traditional ones to make a vehicle lighter. However, it's often reserved for high-end applications. It's known to be a quite expensive material, and it's inherently complex. While you're manufacturing your part, you're really determining the properties, so you better be knowing exactly what you're doing. And lastly, it's a relatively slow process. You'd probably be surprised how many parts up to this day are still manufactured manually. And those are the things that we, as the composite projects, are trying to tackle. So we're planning to lower the hurdle to actually utilize composites in a more widespread way. We have 2 projects, one looking at the demands of the aerospace industry and one looking into e-mobility. They, of course, have quite a lot of different requirements, but there's also plenty of similarities. These are the consortia, and in the middle you see a render that was conceived at the very beginning of this project. This is our flexible digital microfactory. And today I've brought you a few images to give you a little bit of an impression how this render and all those individual steps are turning into actual manufacturing technology. So we're looking at developing new and sustainable material systems, looking at recycling concepts that enable us to truly have a zero-waste manufacturing process. We're looking at automating components that are currently still manufactured by hand, so widening the envelope of what we can do, increasing the rate both at high and low volume. Those are all great hardware components that we're delivering, but hardware is only half the way there. As I said, one of the big hurdles is the complexity of it. So introducing a whole lot of automation actually is making it even more complex. So a second very important strand within our projects, and that's where those 2 projects really come together, is actually developing software to make it easy. We're embedding process know-how into our systems so you don't have to have it as an end user. We're working on automated programming, so you don't have to have lengthy setup times where you sit down and program the part once you want to change it, really enabling a whole lot of new flexibility. Once you have automation in place, putting sensors in is actually quite straightforward. So you have the ability to gather a whole lot of data. You can make your processes much better. You have much better overview of what's going on, improve it, and make it more efficient. And lastly, having a whole bunch of different pieces of automation technology, you also need to orchestrate that. So we're working on how can we connect all of those different solutions and how can we embed that into a wider factory setting. And I hope I've given you a little bit of a glimpse about all the stuff we're working on. We're very excited to speak to all of you in our exhibition area, so I invite you to come and talk to any of the Composite team today. Thank you very much.